Ghastly Gospels is in association with Blurred.
Welcome to our first official episode of Ghastly Gospels. I love saying the name Double G, like when they say good game.
You're so extra. The name is growing on me, though. I'm not gonna lie. Initially, I was kind of skeptical, but I think it fits.
Yeah, me and Otis worked real hard, actually, trying to find that. But in this new podcast, we talk about everything horror, movies, shows, books, comics, characters, video games, because Captain Diesel does do our horror video games. I refuse. But, you know, I'll be there.
I'm just sick in the head, man. Just sick in the head, man. What can I say?
And serial killers, true crimes, stories, extra, all the stuff. And today, for the first episode, we are talking about a serial killer, who allegedly killed over 600 girls, allegedly, and bathed in their blood to make herself young, allegedly. And her name is Erszebet Bathory. A lot of people called her Erszebet Bathory, and I know her name should sound familiar if you watched Castlevania Nocturne. What are you thinking?
Allegedly, I'm thinking she's an interesting character. I watched the series Castlevania. I think it was the third season when she was starting, the third or fourth. I can't remember the seasons that she was introduced, but she was a really interesting character to me. And I really wanted to honestly see more of her life before she got turned into a vampire, just to see like and we saw a brief moment of it in the series where we got to see how demented and twisted she was, leading her up to be worthy in the eyes of other vampires to be turned and not be, seen as food.
Right. Well, I loved her as the villain for Nocturne. I thought that was impressive. So, like, when I heard her name, I was like, her name sounds really familiar because of my like super obsession with serial killers anyway. So I've read about Erszebet a million times, just because all of her alleged crimes were interesting, because they were telling people that she was torturing peasants at first, and that she was torturing peasants because they wouldn't be missed. And I was like, that makes logical sense in that time, I'm assuming, if those crimes were true. Allegedly. And then she started going after younger girls who had like notable families, and to kill allegedly 600 of them through various torture. I was like, interesting, very interesting. So when I saw that that's who they decided to bring and turn into a vampire, I was like, that's such an interesting choice.
Yeah, it fit. I think the interesting thing that I saw when I was doing some research on her was the whole aspect of her literally going through and killing seemingly all the peasant people, because she went through all the poor people first, like all the poor little girls. I think she was primarily killing young women and young girls. So after going through all the poor young girls, everybody was like, you know what? They're peasants. Why do we care? It is what it is. If they're missing, who cares? But when she got to the point where she was starting to kill some of the noble women and like some of the people that are from royal descent, I think that's when she started to draw a little bit of heat. But it's so interesting how somebody can be so twisted and demented enough to kind of like just kill on a whim, it feels like. Because for you to go through that many people, and she died, she was only maybe like 60 something when she passed away, I believe.
Yeah, because her husband was 48 when he died.
Yeah, so in a seemingly short amount of time, like to kill over 600 people, and then not only that, but like essentially like kind of create your own murder code because you involved your servants as well in this whole proceeding. So you like cultivated this cult of women who were assisting you with committing hundreds upon hundreds of murders without feeling the need to tell anybody. So like you had their supreme loyalty on top of that. She's a very interesting person. And I really wish I want to find more information regarding like how she thinks. I think that's the cool thing when it comes to just looking at murderers or serial killers, is just their modus operandi and like what makes them tick. Like watching something like Dexter is like the prime example for me, where you see something is like really making them urge to murder people to this extent.
You know, and that brings me to the other thing that I wanted to bring in for this particular conversation, a new comic book that just started from Image Comics. I'm pretty sure it's Image. And it's called I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer. And the main character girl's name is Erszebet Bathory. And she's very admittedly a serial killer, and she was promising herself that she didn't want to kill anybody else. She likes making her own clothes. But the other thing is she does like being a serial killer and bathing in the blood of the people that she's killed. I was like, that's really interesting, because what is your and like whenever she says it's a skin condition because she scratches, and she says it's a skin condition and it's like it flares up when she gets annoyed. Girl, I have never seen someone illustrate the itch to murder somebody physically.
It is so
physically itching to murder someone.
And looking at her is so interesting because I know I mentioned Dexter earlier, but this is probably the only thing I can like really compare it to in my mind of someone who looks at murder from such a casual lens. Because she's looking at it as something like, hey, I either choose to do it or not to do it. It's not any prep work, any like prep time going into it. It's just like, all right, tonight, I'm going to find you, kill you, drag you off. Not only bathe in your blood and drain you of your blood, but skin you alive to then use your skin in designs for my clothing. And I think that was the most interesting thing that really kind of differentiated her from other killers like a Dexter, is the aspect of using all the things that she takes from prey, almost like a hunter, like a legit hunter in stuff. Like the blood doesn't go to waste because he bathes in it. The skin doesn't go to waste because he uses that. And seemingly, like, because she has these bone, not chopsticks,
the bone hairpins.
Yeah, so like I'm seemingly she carved them for herself from somebody else's body, and she used that. Those are like her signature murder weapons that I've seen. It's dope.
It really reminds me of like Criminal Minds too, because Criminal Minds goes through several different things, but like their mainstay is serial killers, and they've had a few, because I'm on, I think, season 10. So through all 10 of these seasons, they've had those serial killers who quite literally just go about their day as if the night before they didn't just murder somebody.
Let me ask you this, because this is the question of nature versus nurture. Do you feel like for somebody to have the ability to dissociate from murder like that, it has to be some kind of trauma response, or do you think it's more of a thing that you're kind of born with, like maybe a chemical imbalance or something that makes you lack the empathy when you're either thinking about or actually like murdering a lot of people? Because again, with Renee, and even with Elizabeth, they're murdering with like no hesitation. With Elizabeth, it makes more sense because she has power. She's in a position of power and privilege. So she probably feels like she's unstoppable and she has no consequence. But Renee, it's like, bro, you are your early 20s and like not broad daylight, but in like public in front of other people or like, near people, just like murdering people and dragging bodies into it. Because I'm trying to figure, I can't wait to like read the second issue to kind of see further into how she moves these bodies around, because you're just dragging a literal dead body of like a 200-pound person and not getting caught.
Well, I think I want to say it kind of depends on the person, because it can be either or both, so like in Rennie's case, she does not like when people or when women specifically are being sexually assaulted. Which is that first murder that happens in the book with the guy. And then she was going after the girl that was quite literally pissing her off after she made that vow that she wasn't going to kill nobody. And the girl was making her itch. She's like, I have to scratch this. It's like this one was like an opportunity kill, because while she's going after the girl that she's wanting is then being sexually harassed by the security guard. So she's like, you know what? It's cool. I'm gonna get this one instead. But you are on my radar, ma'am.
Yeah, she fully planned to kill that girl that night.
Yeah. She had fully planned to murder that woman. And because she was being like sexually harassed by the security guard, she was like, you know what? I still want to kill somebody, but it can't be you. Not right now. Not in this situation, because that's not my thing. So then going over to Elizabeth, hers also seems like hers is just opportunity, because she has that privacy of the castle, the loyalty of her servants, and everything around that time just seems like a rumor, because she was helping people also. I think that's one of the interesting things about her situation, is that she was charged with helping people medically. So if you were to walk into the castle and see all these women who are injured, well, they were supposed to come to her for medical attention. So she has the opportunity and the cover.
And I feel like, because I remember I saw somewhere when I was doing research for it, like she maybe did a couple murders when her husband was alive, but like she really like let loose when she passed away. And I think that kind of leads more into my thought process in regards to her feeling like she had no consequence, because of the only, you know, seemingly adult figure in her life, because she was like, what, 15 or 14 when she married her husband. And her husband was at that point a grown man. You know how that goes in that time period. The only like parental figure she has in her life passed away. It's like, okay, now I can do whatever I want, and I have money, power, and a alibi to murder these people. It's really interesting, and how she went about it. Because is the whole bathing in blood thing something you found consistent too when you research on her? Because I found like a couple pieces of articles where they talked about her doing that, but I didn't know if that was something that was consistent around, you know, everything to confirm that she was doing that.
I did, but kind of just like how all of so like basically they were saying that the charges of murder brought against her were really for political reasons, so that she may not have actually committed them because they didn't find any evidence. But when you are somebody who is you're supposed to be charged with medical, then I know at that point how to get rid of evidence to make it all seem like it's a rumor. So then it's like, I did find where she was bathing in like blood, but of course, along with everything else, that was alleged. So it's like, you know, do you know? And it's like, as soon as it happened, because she is in so many different literary things and part of pop culture at this point, there was actually another movie that she was in where she was being used as one of the characters, and I can't remember what the movie was, but the character that they were using as like basically Erszebet Bathory was definitely down murdering people and like bathing in the blood. And I'm like, I think that is, they're finding that in all of these different places as part of all of her rumors.
Yeah, because that is something that I've seen in like pop culture. Because I know there's a whole thing about, I think, was it Megan Fox was or no, it was Kim K that they said was like bathing in blood to like help her keep rejuvenated and things like that. Funny enough, even more recently when we did the video on the American Horror Story Coven, the main mistress in that video that was so obsessed with like remaining youthful and what's the word I'm looking for, like youthful and vibrant. Yeah, she was using like the blood of her slaves in her skincare routine. So it's nothing new per se in regards to women bathing in blood to keep youthfulness and vibrancy. But yeah, I never put two and two together to see, because I've heard of Elizabeth in the past, but I never really put two and two together in a lot of the media I was watching to see that she was the inspiration for a lot of that.
Yeah, and like even from 1970 all the way to 2016, because I watched Salem. Salem is literally like one of my favorite fucking TV shows. Um, and there is a Salem bloodbath that was like 2015, and they have Elizabeth in there, and of course, after she's killed all of these young girls, she's bathing in their blood. She was also in an animated TV movie for Hellboy, where she was Erszebet. Blood and Iron, I
That
think is what it was
was
called.
her. I forgot about that.
Yes. um, they just have like, and I think that that's one of the more curious things that people have picked up of hers without actually realizing it was something that she was charged for.
So this is the thing with her that I'm really curious on is how accurate.
She was in Hostel Part 2.
Hostel, like the new, like the
Yeah.
torture, the
one from the torture movie the one from 2007 by Eli Roth.
Yeah, thank you. I was about to struggle if I could get that out.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that. So, because you mentioned it in regards to like how viable that charges were on her, like if it was a thing where they kind of planted evidence and made her the patsy for political and financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting to me how these rumors or these stories like transform over time. Because let's say, hypothetically speaking, that she didn't do any of this stuff and she was set up and these charges were placed upon her falsely. Somebody took this story and it was kind of using the game like a game of telephone down the line through generations and turned into this ghost story, and then then spread into different iterations in pop media and culture. We've seen so many different stories and tales based off of this lie. That's just so interesting to me. The factor of this one story could be the reasoning why people everywhere take this woman's story and make it into something that can entertain the masses.
And what's really interesting is that she does have a vampire myth about herself, which is where the bathing in young women's blood came from. Because, of course, everybody was like, oh, she was definitely torturing and killing the peasants, because now we have the peasant girls. So we have all these peasant girls missing from the village, and they were last seen going to her castle for medical attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we have notable people also missing. So saying allegedly she knew how to torture and get rid of these bodies, you still have a lot of blood to make up for. So then, of course, her also like owning a castle in Transylvania, her like with all of these charges of her murdering so many girls, and then the blood comes up and everybody starts the guy who wrote Dracula back in like 1890 something, late 1890s, Bram Stoker, where he used her story as influence for Dracula. So that's essentially she starts the vampire myth with all of the things that she was charged with back in 1610.
So now I'd be interested I think we need to do an episode on this person as well, but where in the timeline Vlad the Impaler comes in, because I know he was the main thing that was used as inspiration for Dracula himself, like being Vlad Tepes and all these other names that they give him. I'm really interested because it sounds like Dracula himself and like the concept of vampires are like a combination of her myth as well as the myth with Vlad the Impaler, and kind of being mushed into one. But I have to look at like the timeline in regards to like when they were both active, when they did their things, and when they died, and when that.
His would have been before, so his is like 1400s. Is like 1480, 1470, 1480, something like that.
Okay, because I couldn't remember when he was a thing.
'Cause I know they
Or
definitely used him for like his name for Dracula in the Castlevania
hmm
games and
yeah,
movies.
because he definitely was like Vlad Tepes in that, and there's a whole thing about him putting people
Hmm.
on stakes and whatnot. Then you look at stuff
Right,
like
yeah.
uh, Helsing, Helsing Ultimate, or this Helsing in general with
Hmm.
Alucard and that whole aspect. Again, we know vampires over time have been used in many different instances, from movies to shows to animated series to games, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always interesting to and cool to go back and see what the originators were in regards to what inspired these stories. And Erszebet Bathory seemed like a very interesting individual to kind of look at. And I definitely want to look more into different things that she's been portrayed in or adapted into, because she's a pretty
Hmm.
peculiar person in regards to that. And I'm wondering if there are any historians that did any research that turned up like more around her, again, to her modus operandi. Like, why does she feel the need? Does she have the Dexter thing where there's maybe this like third person speaking to her, making her being compelled to murder these people, or is it something that she just did just for the fun of it? Was it something that was akin to a lot of the stuff with, again, it was really kind of dark here, but like the Mandingo fighting back during slavery, or during the Roman
Hmm.
Colosseum, where people just like to see murder and violence just because they can. I kind of want to see what caused her to want to do this stuff. And yeah, man.
So what I'm seeing for just for Vlad's part in this is that Stoker didn't actually know much about Vlad the Impaler to use him as his inspiration for Dracula.
So maybe you think this was added in over time? Because I feel like Vlad is usually
I don't know,
even
because
more
his
so than
book came out in
Elizabeth.
87. Yeah, because his book came out in 1897. So like he knew of Wallachia, which again I thought Wallachia was like not a real place. Thought that was a Castlevania place. So he knew about Wallachia. He didn't know much about Vlad, enough for anybody to say that it was the inspiration. So it seems like he used kind of just different pieces of miscellaneous information, is what they're saying, about the history of Wallachia when putting his Count Dracula book together. So he may have used like parts of Vlad's story, but it sounds like with like the bloodbath and the blood seeker for vanity thing going on, it sounds like he leaned more towards Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm definitely going forward. I'm definitely gonna try to do a lot more research, because I think this is something that we can easily solve by doing more research on the timeline of things. Um,
Right,
but I'm
right.
really interested to see at like what point in the myth or the mythos did Vlad get inserted into that in regards to like the origins or the inspiration for Dracula. Because again, I feel like in every
Yeah.
iteration of Dracula I've seen, Vlad is usually the one that's alluded to in regards to the origins of the character, or even just in the origins of all vampires in general, usually goes back to Vlad the Impaler to one way or the other. I very rarely see
And I think
Elizabeth
his
be
is a
the
lot
progenitor.
more. Yeah, his seems like it's a lot more prominent because his are actually been proven and people saw
Right,
them. Hers
right.
is still like an alleged thing. So it's like, again, I would never want anybody to prove that someone killed 600 people, 600 women and girls. Because slow down, ma'am, please.
What gives me
But
cause to feel like that was maybe possibly fake is I didn't see any reference to bodies. Because there's no way you kill that many people, even if they're small children, and you're able to hide that many bodies that effectively without anybody finding any sort of uh any like leftover pieces of corpses or skeletons anywhere. Because where would she put them at? Unless she's dumping them out to sea,
right,
which
and that's what the thing was
yeah.
crazy. And that's the thing that was crazy with the investigation is that the one who was running the investigation, I think his name is Giagor or something like that. He was running the investigation and he said that he's the one who saw the bodies.
Did he
But
say? When he
of
say where he
course,
saw them at?
they're
Did he?
like He said he told her about a visit. So, and this is where everybody, the historians, are kind of debating, and where they think that it's more of just a political thing, because he stood to have political gain if he was able to like bring her down because she had so much power. And he said that he had announced a visit to her, and when he came in, he saw one dead girl when he came into the castle, and one who had just been tortured. She had fresh torture wounds on her body, and he saw Elizabeth drenched in blood. And then the counter to that was the person who he saw was not dead, but she was sick and she was coming there for medical attention. And one of the women who are supposed to be like her servants went to go get the stuff to help her. She literally had just gotten there, and Elizabeth was eating dinner.
You know, you explaining in that way makes it a lot more believable to me that she maybe had been innocent. Because if we're looking at this from an aspect of this woman who has a lot of political power, a lot of stature or status, is now unchecked by a man because her only husband is dead and no one in either of their families really can check her. So you have this incredibly powerful woman who has a lot of this political and financial power. And the only way you can really get rid of her is by having her arrested. And then keep in mind, they executed all of the servants that they said were taking part in this. So on top of that, you don't even want to leave anybody around to be like a witness testimony or to help defend her. We just want to get them out of here, like just off them. So we don't have to worry about this as well. It would make sense. And honestly, this is a story I'm gonna have to write. And I'm writing my comic right now. And I was looking at like historical serial killers to kind of add in my Reaper story. I would love to kind of add her as a character that was lied on and like turned into the thing that they said she was. Because that's very interesting. And
it's really funny because she's in the Guinness Book of Records.
For what?
For as the most prolific female murderer, though they just haven't like confirmed the actual number of victims. Her number of victims is debated, but the fact that she killed people is not. It's like, did she or didn't she?
So we know she got bodies. We just don't know if there's 600 or 2.
Right. And so they're also saying that sadistic pleasure is considered to be her far more plausible motive for her crimes. So they're not saying that she didn't kill anybody, just not how many.
I ain't gonna lie.
But if they have her in there about as like the most prolific, she's got to have a high number for a female murderer. She's got to have a high number. I wonder if it's that like they're trying to just count the peasants. And not even the peasants, the ones who were like given names, like because there were people who were giving specific names of girls who were missing that were last seen going to her castle for medical attention. And those were like the ones who had family that would not have, or that would have missed them. So I wonder if that's what they're counting.
I'm not gonna lie to. I'm curious. I'm curious, like the methodology of not methodology, but the ritual, because obviously if you're killing that many people, it's probably going to be some kind of ritualistic step process that you have in regards to how you kill them, more than likely, if you're killing that many people. Or maybe it's a thing to where you just want to invent new ways to torture people. I don't know, but part of me feels like with her husband gone, this may have been like some kind of freaky sexual thing where maybe she was, indulging in deviant behavior in that realm, and that led to the death of people. Maybe like nobody had a safe word for the asphyxiation thing that she had going on, and she ended up like choking people out, or blood play, stuff like that. Because this
blood play sounds interesting. I mean, sounds more accurate.
right. Because for all this stuff to be rumored, and to your point, to her have been conferred to murder people, but she's not. Again, because I'm also looking at these servants like, what about her made you not want to reveal any of this information to anyone? Because if it was this easy to get her packed up and murdered just off of one man making a suggestion or making a report that she was murdering people, I'm so surprised that like none of her servants left to go snitch, especially if it's a thing of like.
But then it's like, why? But it's also kind of like, why would I? Because nothing's happening to me. and I get to eat and sleep in this castle, minding my own business up until the point where she needs me to do something, and then I go back to my daily life.
True, that could be it. Where you're just living.
And I mean, and also like I could have just been like, any of them could have just been like, after she got caught or whatever, they could have been like, I ain't know nothing about it. I wasn't there. I was in the opposite direction of the castle, mopping the floor. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see that. It's interesting. It's interesting. People's reasonings for that, because those are usually, honestly, outside of the murderer themselves, the people that assist them are always the most interesting people. Because usually, if it's family, okay, I get it, you're trying to protect your family member, da 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 da. But like for people in situations like this, to where you just inherit these servants and inherit their loyalty, you would think that people like traditional human greed would take over, where it's like, all right, I'll go get this information and give it to somebody else for a return of political or financial gain. Like I'll sell them out for money. But for you to be like, all right, no, if I'm living in this castle, if she's treating them well, I can see that being the case. If she's like paying them well and taking care of them and their family, all right, cool. Then they have reasoning to let this thing continue on.
And that kind of sounds like what was happening, is that they were just living life in this big ass castle, and the only thing that I have to do is, whenever you're ready to torture this one girl, oh, you need me to do that? Okay, cool, let me go grab my tools real quick, do that, go clean myself up, tell you there's blood in the bath, and then I finished my day. Eat dinner, go to bed.
Well, I feel like they had to have taken part in some of the murders, because, well, maybe not. Because to your point, if it was just a thing to where they were just gathering bodies or gathering the girls and put them in position, I can see it to where they just let Elizabeth take over from there, maybe.
I mean, I feel like they were probably definitely involved in the torture, because all of them were trained in medical. So all of them were charged with giving medical attention, on top of Elizabeth also giving medical attention. So it's like, they would have been probably involved in the torture, and then just like let the murder part be Elizabeth, because that's probably the part she wanted to partake in. Since it's a sadistic pleasure, she would want to partake in both the torture and the killing. But if they have multiple girls there, in order to keep the other girls quiet, you would have the servants take a girl.
Right.
And that's kind of like the Castlevania version, when they brought her the girl and she just kept her with her. I feel like, and then just gave the other ones like to the servants or whatever. I feel like that's how that would literally go. Like, I'm gonna take this one, she's my favorite, you guys can have like the other ones.
Yeah, that's my thing too. Yeah, too, because again, I want to go back to what you mentioned in regards to the sadistic nature of the killings. Did they mention in any of the stuff you researched or found in your readings in regards to any details as to the steps that she took to murder people? Was it because again, to your point, if it's sadistic pleasure she's taking out of it, was it a thing to where it was like a slow burn to where she's torturing people to death, or is she just trying to murder them as quickly as possible to get the resources, being the blood, to bathe in? Like, I'm trying to figure out what
it was. The torture
that was.
Yeah, it was the torture. She liked and participated in the torture of each one of them, and then the ending result being her killing them, and then also getting their blood to retain her youth and beauty. So it was like double whammy. She got to torture somebody and fulfill whatever sadistic pleasure she had going on, and then after, she got to reward herself with the blood she got from the girl to bathe in it. And I think that's also what I like about Reneen in the Fashion School Serial Killer, is the itch that she had, that Elizabeth had to kill these girls, is physically represented in this character. And she only gets to get that pleasure and have her skin relaxed after she's killed someone, skinned them, and bathed in the blood.
And that's what I love about this. That's what I love about her and how they write that. And it's maybe it's a little bit off script, but in regards to the writing, I always love when they give some kind of like physical tick to a serial killer, because I think that helps to build suspense. And in this instance, like her scratching is something that's always interesting, because when you see it, you know that she's like getting the urge. And if she hasn't killed anybody over, I think what was it, over the course of weeks in the first issue, it's like it's getting worse and worse and worse, and you see it. And she's scratching to the point to where it's like rashing out or leaving bruises on her, because you'll see like red parts on her neck, and the actual soothing. So I'm excited to see what the reasoning for that is, if it's more of a supernatural aspect or if it's going to be more based in reality, like a Dexter, as to what's making her feel this sense of need and compulsion to murder, as well as looking at, again, similar to Dexter, what other people kind of feel the same things. I'm starting to get a vibe early on in this issue that her teacher kind of understands what she is, because her teacher has like this weird interest in her, but seemingly understands her as well, where she's like looking into her and asking her certain questions, but not really really giving her too much attention, if that makes any sense, to kind of like make things look like she's showing favoritism towards her.
Yeah, and I actually kind of do like, because the teacher's just like, I want everybody to do absolutely amazing in this class. And she looks at her and she's like, not just good, but like amazing, undeniable. And I'm like, are you sure you want that from her?
Literally.
Are you sure, ma'am?
And now I'm
definitely
legit looking
excited for it.
I'm also looking at every piece of clothing she has to see like, okay, what part of the human body could this have been made out of?
His chest for that damn jacket.
Yeah, that was insane. I was like, oh, that's cool.
I said, in the video I did, I was like, pay attention to the chest piece there, because you'll see it again. And the fact that it was imprinted in the jacket because she used his, I was like, yep, there it is. I love her. She
seems cool. I want to see more what that story has to offer. And definitely I'm excited. I'm legit going to start picking this comic up at my local comic shop, like have them put it in my pull box along with all the other Marvel and DC stuff that I'm reading right now.
Yes, I'm excited that they have that. Like when I saw that her last name was Bathory, and we got to the end and she was taking a bath in the blood, I was like, yes, an Erszebet Bathory reference. I'm so excited. So I'm definitely excited to see where they take that.
Okay.
Knowing as much as we do about Elizabeth.
You have anything else you want to kind of look at with her?
No, that's it for me. Do you have anything else?
No, man. I just want to let people know that are listening to this later on that, this is the first episode. I know things may have been a little janky in regards to some of our delivery, but going into the future, I plan to be more of an active participant in helping plan out some of these episodes. And because I genuinely had fun doing this, and I want to make this more of a polished thing going forward. So I'm gonna assist Kaori as much as I can with these. So thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. For people watching, thank you so much for watching this. And we hope you guys, enjoy listening to this. Jesus Christ, you know what I'm talking about. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I definitely want to talk more serial killers, more gore, things of that nature.
Yes, this is definitely fun. So thank you. We totally forgot to introduce ourselves, but if you didn't already know that it was Dr. Kaori and Captain Diesel from Captain Diesel's Dojo, I really don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, if you guys want to see more of what we have to offer, our respective YouTube channels are there. I cover a lot of nerdy stuff from comics, gaming, movies, anime, cartoons, and more predominantly horror and horror movies and shows. On my channel, as the doctor herself covers everything comics, and that's where you want to get all your comic diagnosis and prostosis.
Wow.
I almost had it. I was so close.
Almost. It was so close.
Oh God.
The proper diagnosis and prognosis and everything comics and comic book characters.
Yeah, what she said. You can find that on our respective YouTube channels, y'all.
Thank you guys again for listening to our first episode of Ghastly Gospels, and we will catch you guys next time. Enjoy and be horrified.
Be spooked.